Gentle Marketers. Welcome to episode 76 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. I'm Sarah Croce. You know that by now, and you know also that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a better way to market your business, one that's aligned with your values. Or you might also be a marketing impact pioneer, so that's someone who's working in an organization who does business for good. So this week's episodes are sponsored by the Gentle Marketing Revolution book that's available now for sale on Amazon. And you can get it at thegentlemarketingrevolution.com/book or directly at Amazon. Yeah, today is the day. The book is now live on Amazon. So this episode is a little different from the others this week. It's the replay of the live book birding party that took place today on February 17th, 2021. If you'd like to view the video version of this book birding party, you can go to the show notes page at sarahsanacroce.com/GBR76. So I had my friend Kat Rose from The Creative Introvert interview me, and it was really a fun exchange. She was also the one who kind of helped me along my journey with writing the book. And so it was a great exchange because she knew the book inside out. So we talked, for example, about why I wrote the book and why now, how I define gentle and, what it compares to. And we also mentioned the revolution. Why do I use this term revolution together with gentle? The differences between gentle marketing and manipulative marketing. We also addressed the 7 Ps of marketing. So that mandala that if you haven't downloaded it yet, you can download at sarahsanacroce.com/one page, the number 1, and then page, which takes you through these 7 Ps of gentle marketing, which are different from the traditional 7 Ps. So I go over this model and kind of explain how it's different. And I address some things that I've written about in the book, like the triple win, for example. Explain that idea or concept, and then a lot of personal stories as well. So as this was a group call on Zoom, the quality is not as high as my regular standard. So thanks for being gentle and understanding. So if you're ready, then here is that recording of that live book birding party of the Gentle Marketing Revolution. Enjoy. So welcome, everyone. Officially, thank you so much for joining us, Kat and I, for this official book birding party. Feels weird for an introvert. Honestly, I never like to have the attention on myself. So thanks, Kat, for sharing the attention with me. Yeah, just delighted to have you all here. And as we kind of said in the invitation, this is really just a casual get together to celebrate the book, celebrate a new kind of era in terms of what's coming, in terms of marketing and business, just really kind of marking this date in a way. And Kat is really also are going to talk about astrology for a little while because it's a kind of an important date today as well. So I only noticed that after, I think, Kat, didn't we talk about launching it a week prior? And then we pushed it back to this date because of the Random Acts of Kindness week. And so it's just kind of like symbolic. So you'll tell us a little bit about that. But yeah, just really looking forward to hanging out with you for this hour and tell you a bit more about the book and how I see this idea of gentle marketing, how I wrote it and all of that. And then, of course, always open to your questions. So Kat will kind of ask me a few things and then feel free to jump in and just ask me anything goes. I was sharing in an email yesterday to you guys that now it's all out there, so anything else you want to know, just ask. So just really quick, I want to introduce Kat. So Kat Rose Nelligan is a longtime friend, fellow introvert. She's the founder of thecreativeintrovert.com. And we've known each other now for quite a while. And when I thought, well, who am I going to work with for the book, like kind of accompany me in this journey, I reached out to Kat because she just quietly, I remember that, when was that, 2 years ago, when you just kind of quietly put a book out there and nobody knew, and all of a sudden there was a book on your site. So that's what we did together. So I'll hand it over to you, Kat.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, it's a real honor to be here. And it's just such a pleasure to see the process of you writing the book. A lot more methodically than I managed to do. And I learned a lot actually from you when we've been going through all of this. And it's just a really nice thing. And you're one of the few people that I've met in real life out of all of my internet friends. So it's quite nice to do this. Yeah, a little bit about the astrology of the moment. I think it's really interesting how that happens, that this momentous day has fallen on a very significant astrological day as well. Today, two big planets, Saturn and Uranus, which people might be familiar with, even if you're not into the astrology stuff. They're making a certain aspect in the sky right now. And for what it's worth, just a little bit about the kind of archetypes that these planets represent. So Saturn can be thought of as like the old structure, the way things have been done, and maybe even a sense of clinging to what that old structure was. It's the sense of, it's like big industries and bureaucracies that have been built up and have sort of become bloated over time, and out of safety or fear as well, and wanting to stay the same. And then you have the planet Uranus, who's kind of coming up there, a much more recently discovered planet. I think it was in the 1700s, Uranus was discovered, and we've been able to see it for much, much longer. So Uranus represents, revolution is like one of the classic keywords, right? And, this is literally all about revolution. And meeting Saturn in this way, we really are seeing old structures being challenged right now. And it can feel quite unsettling to some people. We might talk a little bit about some of those feelings, some of those, the fear that we have in breaking outside of the mold and, putting ourselves out there in a different way. But those are just some of the themes that are coming up right now. And I really can't think of a better time to have this moment.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. I really feel this push and pull, right? This yes, we want things to change. Yes, we want a different way to market our businesses. Yes, we want a different way to do business. And yet, there's all this old stuff kind of holding us back, the old way of doing things. So I kind of find it really interesting how the book comes out on this day. So excited.
And Kristen says, I've self-published 2 books. Congratulations. And I know this feeling. Yeah, it's very relatable, isn't it? So let's get into it. So I thought we could start with the book title. Mm-hmm. How do you define gentle?
It's an interesting word, isn't it? Because we sometimes think of gentle as when I Googled gentle, all these images of puppies and cats and like animals showed up. And usually I guess that's where we are gentle, is with like small things. And in a way, it does give us that feeling, that word, it gives us this feeling nurturing, or of, being like, really warm and cozy. So that's how I see gentle. And it's interesting because Valerie is here, and we tried to come up with a definition in French because, we're in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. It's not that easy to translate that word into another language, because it really displays this warmth that you feel when you hear it. And I also want to give credit to our common friend, Kat, you know him as well, Andy Mort. of the Gentle Rebel podcast. So when I first heard this idea of gentle rebels, I'm like, yeah, that really resonates. So it stuck with me. And so gentle revolution is not so different from that. So that's what it means for me. And people always ask, and clearly Arndt is the only brave man among us as of now. People always ask, well, is this only a female revolution? Is this only for women? And I clearly say, no, this is not just, one of those female movements where it's women only. Not at all. I do really believe that it's time that maybe we can talk about energies. And yeah, it's more of this feminine energy that we want to bring into business. But that doesn't mean that it's a war of the sexes. Not at all. Like, on the contrary, I think. And I do see a lot of men also interested in it. And I think especially now after, this strange year we had, there's a lot of men that maybe became also tired of the pushiness and the hype and the hustle. So no, I think it maybe it's, I always am like too early, like maybe, ahead of the time. And yes, right now, maybe it is kind of like too much out there. But I'm thinking, even just in 3 years, things are changing rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like that to me anyway. And one thing that I've learned from you is gentle doesn't have to mean weak. It doesn't have to mean like impotent. It actually can be gentle and powerful at the same time. In terms of like the concept of marketing, how would you kind of define the difference between, let's say, a gentle marketing approach and a manipulative marketing approach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually quite subtle, the difference, because it's not that we're saying we're going to throw out all these marketing techniques that we know they work, right? There's a lot of these marketing techniques that are based on human psychology. For example, this idea of scarcity, to present an offer that is scarce. So meaning that there's only 2 or 3 things available. So we're not going to throw this all out because it's true that they work. The problem with scarcity or manipulation or false urgency, so like this offer expires in 24 minutes and then you go back an hour later and it's still there. So the problem is not that we're using them. The problem is that they're being abused, so that we're using them in marketing to trick people, to manipulate people into buying more. And so the difference is really very subtle, and it's like in the words we use to express. So instead of, kind of shaming people or making them feel bad or making them feel like they're going to miss out, I think it's time that we use marketing in a more positive way and invite them in to something and make them feel like they belong and that, they're part of something, rather than feeling like they're not good enough because they're not there yet with their 6 figures or whatever shaming technique that we are taught to use so often. So there's not a list that says, you do this, you're hype, and you do this, you're gentle, but it's more like the whole mindset. It's more, someone else I heard on a podcast use this term aspirational marketing. So it's more in that sense that it's like, well, we are wanting people to focus more on the solution rather than the problem. Again, not saying that we're completely not talking about the problem that our clients have anymore, because we need to somehow address that they have a problem, and that's how they pay attention to our offer. But it's the way we talk about the problem that we're taught that you have to really, go deep into the problem and list all their horrible, like explain how horrible their life is so that then you can come in with the solution. That's the shift really in that sense.
Yeah, it can be subtle from the sounds of it. And it's really a lot more about how it feels a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I forget the name now of the guy, but there's a beautiful quote where he says, basically, the 21st century marketer becomes a healer. So when you think about that just changes everything. So it's our role as marketers to to want a society that is, healing and not. Really, the reason for me for writing this book is noticing how much anxiety marketing creates in people. And that means for us as marketers, but also for consumers. And that could be for consumers in services or consumers in products. It just creates anxiety because we always feel like we don't have enough. We're not enough. We're not successful. And if you think about marketing, the role of marketing more from that healing perspective, everything shifts.
And the final word that we haven't addressed in the title is revolution. So what makes this revolutionary? Like just the concept of, let's say, authentic marketing, like that's not so revolutionary, or is it?
Yeah. Well, first, maybe the play with the paradox, right? It's a revolution, and that revolution, it's interesting because, again, we're in this year where astrologers are talking about revolutions with Uranus and all of that, and we see revolutions everywhere we look, really. But back when I started writing the book, that wasn't the case yet. But I just felt like that's what we need. We need a revolution. We need something completely different. And then as well, and that's interesting as well, because it's linked with the astrology again, is that, what happened back in the 1960s is kind of repeating again now, today. And for those of you who don't know yet, it's in the book, but I come from a hippie background. I call myself now a hippie turned business coach. I've grown up in a hippie commune, and so my parents are like, those are the values I grew up with. And so a revolution or, being a rebel, that's very close to my home, to my heart. And so that's where the paradox is. Oh, the paradox is because it's a gentle revolution. So I always think of Gandhi, this gentle revolution. It doesn't mean go out in the street and fight, but just bring change the gentle way. And so that's the paradox here. And what's revolutionary, it's funny because it's a revolution. So meaning we're like going back to something almost, right? If you look at the word. And what we're going back to is kind of what existed 20 years ago, meaning the human connection. So when these guys who built the internet first created it, they had the intention to use it for more human interactions, more human connection. But then we lost track and we started automating everything and using bots. And, you really got excited about technology. And the problem with technology is not that we are using it. That's a good thing, but we forgot about the human connection. And so I think that's where the revolution is. It's like, let's go back to bring more of that into our marketing so that we can have both. Like we can use all the technology we have available today and yet not forget about the human connection.
Yeah.
So I think that's...
Well, again, it's really reflective of the astrology of the moment, just because the pure Uranus approach would be, let's just destroy everything. Let's just burn it all down, start again. Whereas Saturn is basically preventing us from doing that. And Saturn is saying, hang on, you need to be careful as to how you do this. And again, I think there's this wonderful solution that you're finding with the gentle approach, which is, yeah, we admit that we need to market, we need to have a way to get the word out about what our services are, but things need to change, but they need to be done, I guess, respectfully of what is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that both and, not either or, right? It's the profit and purpose. It's this idea of we want both. We don't want just a capitalistic system anymore. We want, life balance as well. We want to have a business that gives us joy. And so it's really, it is a revolution because in our lifetimes, we haven't seen that yet. So that's where this work comes from.
So something that you mentioned is, obviously you started writing this book before you had even become aware. You weren't aware of the astrology. You weren't, as far as I know, the COVID stuff hadn't happened yet. No. So why is this book happening now?
Yeah, I think personal reasons. So I, came just like to this realization that I couldn't continue the way I was doing things before, and kind of coincided with turning 40 a few years ago, how that usually happens. And then, just really thinking, well, either I quit or I find a new, better way that works for me. And I'm talking about really coming from this online marketing world where we've just been taught how things are supposed to work, where, this is how you do marketing and this is what works. And here's my 5 steps and use my template and all of these things that we are so familiar with. And I just couldn't do it anymore because it just didn't feel good. And so, that's where I think, in the book, I write about this moment on the therapist's chair, also realizing how hard it is to be different. And what I thought about then is like different in terms of the business, like being someone who's gentle in such a tough business environment, that is really hard. But also then again, different, like wanting to do things differently, not wanting to do what these pushy marketer gurus told me to do. So that's really the moment where the seed was planted. And I was like, okay, well, it's either this or quit. And it wasn't easy, obviously, because when you want to do things differently, it's never easy because you don't have, you can't hide. That's the problem. Yeah.
This is what I love about your book. It was almost like you can tell that it's come from a personal revolution, right? And that's what makes the book so relatable. It's like, I know that you walk the talk, and this comes across in the book wholeheartedly. So in terms of your approach to writing this book, can you share a little bit about that? Because some of us have written books, some of us are like, whoa, maybe that's something I would like to do one day. But how did you approach writing this?
Yeah, maybe I can talk about the timing a little bit as well, because like in 2019, when I built the Gentle Marketing Revolution program, everybody was telling me, you got to write this book. And I kept saying, not now. It needs to be in 2020. And then sure enough, I started kind of putting things together end of 2019. And then we all know what happened in February of 2020. And so it really was like meant to be for me to just focus on this book, because business went down like for most people. And so I really didn't have many clients, and I could just really focus on the book. And I always knew I was going to write it in a year. That's who I am. I commit to something and I just, get it done. But obviously it was much easier because now I really just had all this extra time that I could focus on it. And so, I started with an outline, and then first worked with one coach for the outline, because I have a very structured brain. And so I was like, how am I going to write this book just starting on page 1? That's not going to work for me. And so really just first putting this outline together where I knew, here are the 3 parts. And then, each part has this many chapters. And so I really had the scaffolding first, the structure. And then, so Jenny Blake, who helped me doing that, she was just ingenious, like how, she's like, well, once you have that structure, you really only have to like write blog posts for each of the points you want to get across per chapter. And then in the end, you take all the blog posts. So that's exactly what I did. I had one blog post for each kind of subchapter, like each point in the chapter, wrote it all on Google Docs. And then once I had all of that, I brought it together and just had to work on the flow and kind of the transitions between chapters. And then I brought you in and I said, let's read this together. Help me, kind of just, figure out if the flow makes sense, if the points make sense. And I think how did it go with the labyrinth? I think it was, you were like, well, it'd be nice if we had some kind of visual to use in the book to kind of, show this transformation really. And
Yeah,
so,
the idea that there's a kind of story that you were taking us through, even though this is like a, it's like a non-fiction kind of book, it's like there's something going on here, and we're circumambulating it, and I think went from there.
yeah. And then I remembered, so I already had the seven. Oh, exactly. That's how it went. I already had the 7 Ps. So the mandala with the 7 Ps, where basically I recreated the framework of the 7 Ps of marketing, which already exists. I looked at it and I'm like, the circles started moving and I saw a mandala in front of my eyes. My mom sometimes colored mandalas. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I started, learning more about mandalas, took a course on it. And really what a mandala is it's a creative process. And so I thought, wow, that I love that, because marketing is a creative process. And so the idea is that if you work through the 7 Ps of marketing, you come to your center, you find yourself. Jung says that, you find yourself when you walk through these 7 or these things. Like, no, he doesn't refer to the 7 Ps, but he refers to the mandala as being a way to work towards your center. Mm-hmm. And so that concept you already had, but we're like, well, it's kind of too many steps. Like, if we didn't want to, have all these P's in the book. And so then I realized that already back, a few months ago, I had this image of the labyrinth that really resonated with me. And so that's when I was like, oh, we can use the labyrinth and really this journey of transformation where you walk into the labyrinth and you rumble with your story. So the book is organized around these 3 R's. The first one being rumble. So really look at your story, find out who you are, go back to your childhood. And yeah, I had to go through all of that. And some of it was not easy. There's a lot of stuff came up with my dad and whatnot. And so going through that, and then once you rumbled with the story, you're in the center of the labyrinth. And that's when you rise. So you rise above the noise, but you also rise because you give yourself permission to be different, to be unique, and to, just really, own your own power in a way. And then the third step is when you walk back out into the world with all this knowledge that you now have. And that's when you resonate with your ideal clients. Yeah. So it's these 3 R's that we then worked on.
Yeah, it's really helpful for me, just knowing that, like the labyrinth image, it's a reminder that, the labyrinth isn't a linear thing. You are, and sometimes you're hitting dead ends, and that is just like totally the process. Yeah.
And it sounds like a very personal transformation, and it is, because I wrote it for people. I wrote the book for 2 audiences. First of all, entrepreneurs, so mainly service-oriented entrepreneurs. But I did also address the marketing impact pioneer. So I see this as a person, someone who's heart-centered, who's maybe right now working in a business, in an organization. Maybe it's a B Corp, but maybe it's just a smaller organization where there's the consciousness already that there is a mismatch with the way we do marketing and the way the consciousness has risen in the people. And so there's just this mismatch, meaning we are still marketing in a way that resonated with people 20 years ago. And so this marketing impact pioneer goes, wow, okay, there is something there. Maybe I can talk to my boss about gentle marketing. So that's that's kind of my hope for the future, that eventually even organizations think more about the way they market and think about gentle marketing.
Yeah, well, it definitely feels like the time is right for that. Or I'm looking forward to more people taking this on myself.
And again, the movement comes from the people. That's also, again, what we're seeing now, with everything that's happening. I was like, yay when the whole thing with the GameStop happened, and all these millennials are like on Reddit and completely destroy the stock market. It's the movement of the people, and that's what's happening right now. And so I think if we want to change marketing, then it will also have to come from the people. Not we can't expect the big guys, Nestle and those kind of big companies to think of that first.
Yeah, it's a sort of bottom-up approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you held up was your 7 Ps diagram. And this is different, am I right, from the traditional 7 Ps of marketing that some of us have heard of. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what I did is I kicked some of the Ps out that were kind of like old-fashioned and more brick and mortar oriented. So physical signage, I think it's called, and one is process. And so I brought in some more gentle one, like passion, or sometimes I refer to it as purpose. So really it is like the why, right? Starting with the why, really finding out, well, why are you in business and where's the difference that you want to make? And then the second one is personal power. And that really talks about finding out who you are. So that's really the rumbling and going deeper into your values and into your worldview. And then people is where most marketing programs start, is like find your avatar and customer-centric marketing. And, it's like we need to figure out everything about the people. What I noticed is if you do that, you end up creating a business that doesn't necessarily give you joy, because you just focus everything so much on this client without ever asking yourself, well, who am I? What do I want? I'm in business because I chose to be. So I also want to work with clients that give me joy. So it's really, and then the other ones are kind of the more pragmatic. I call those ones the doing. It's a dance between doing and being, and those ones are the doing, and these ones are the being. And so I think it's really this idea to kind of focus much more on the being as well, and actually start with that. When I analyzed some of the people that I think are, quotation marks, successful, gentle marketers, I noticed over and over again that they figured out the doing, they figured out what works for them. They all had kind of like one marketing superpower that they focused on. But more importantly is that they worked on the being. They really figured out the being, and that was clear and came over in everything they did. So all the communications, you could tell who they were and what they stand for. And I think that's super important.
Definitely, especially when, you were talking about earlier with these traditional marketing approaches that maybe we've been taught, we've learned about them, we've tried them, and it can feel like following a recipe where you're like, I've got the ingredients, I've got the instructions, I've got this. Yeah. And actually it just doesn't come out like it looked on Pinterest or whatever. And it's like that. And I think it's because, yes, we can have the recipe, but if that being part, the key ingredient, let's say, isn't there, then it's not very good in the end.
Yeah. And that you end up with so much frustration because you think you are at fault. You're not good enough because it's not working for you.
Yeah. One of the things that I really loved you mentioning in the book is this idea of creativity in marketing. I was just going to read out a little quote. We don't all need to be painters or sculptors in order to bring more creativity to our marketing. We need to break free from following the mainstream cookie cutter templates and let our right brain participate. That's kind of what we're talking about. But do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I just really think we're also heading towards a time where we're allowed to bring more of our right brain to the picture, and where when we do that, our conscious clients are really making buying decisions with their right brain, not just with the left brain. Until now, it was only, left brain, like facts and figures and price and does she have the skills? Where now the right brain wants to participate and say, does this feel good? Am I aligned with this company's or this service provider's values? Do I, feel like they're taking care of me? They actually see and hear me? Are they only seeing and hearing me because they only want my money, or are they seeing the world as a kind of as a global space, and how are they contributing? So it's I think really it's this Penny Pierce who wrote the foreword together with Jenny. She talks about the intuition age. So like where the intuition is taking also part in making decisions, and that's, you know, also the right brain. And so as marketers, again, if we're stuck with what we've been doing 20 years ago and we only talk about facts and figures, and, you know, things are not beautifully presented, we're not talking about purpose and our why and worldview, then we're missing out on all these conscious clients. And it feels like the consciousness of the clients is speeding up faster than marketing. It's like marketing is lagging behind, and we're still with these ugly web pages with like flashing red numbers and things that, you know, are like in your face. And so really it's about bringing more creativity into our marketing. And I think so many people think they're not creative, but they're only thinking that because they feel like what works is what's out there and they need to follow that, right? And so it's really about giving yourself permission to allow more creativity and doing things differently.
And I can't help but think that if we don't do that, if we only do the left brain approach, that the right brain kind of rebels. And this is when we can see some kind of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've definitely experienced that. So.
Yeah. Maybe we just pause and see if there's some comments or questions, if anybody would like to ask a question.
I like Kristen's point that gentle is less brittle. It's a really good way of seeing it.
Yeah. Janice.
So Valerie is asking, do you still measure results and money, or do you only focus on right brain, intuition, feeling? How do you measure success? How do you actually measure success?
Yeah. That's a good point, and it's one of our favorite conversations with Valerie. We want to really find a way to measure success, you know, differently, and not just in how much money is on your bank account. And I, you know, there's simple ways that we can think of, like, for example, I started writing down every day, you know, what did I have a good day? Did I have joy in my work? So there's simple little things that we can measure like that. And I think more long term, also what this means is that you're really building a sustainable business where there's return customers, and, you know, it's not this hustle business where you feel like you constantly have to hustle to get new clients again and again. So, and I'm sure with AI, actually, there will be new ways to, I'm kind of in this small group mastermind where we're talking about AI and how we're going to measure success. And so I think there's going to be interesting new developments that right now we don't even know. Like, we can't even imagine what's going to come. So excited about that. I see Cecilia is here too, so you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it also reminds me that you do mention this idea of the triple win, right? So it's not just about, you know, how do I feel? That there are other pieces to this. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. It's so true that it's not just about our own success anymore, right? Of course, we need to, you know, pay bills and want to have, you know, a fun life. But success will look so much different also, I think, for all of us, you know, down the road, where we actually feel like we're making a real difference. Until now, I feel like we've been talking about making a difference for, you know, the last 10 years. But now, I mean, this is it. We really need to make a difference these next 10 years. And so that will be our personal successes as well, when we feel like we really made an impact on, you know, some of the sustainable development goals. Or it doesn't have to be big, but it just feels like that, you know, it's this week is Random Acts of Kindness Week. And so this idea of being gentle with someone else, that can be also a success for us, right? So I think it's really also this bridge time between the me and the we. So we're not only thinking about our own success anymore, we're thinking about everybody's success.
Mm. And we've got questions from Scott and Kristen. Both are basically asking about how are marketing firms, marketing departments within companies, and marketing leaders responding to this work? Are you seeing this kind of taking off, or have you had any interactions with them?
Yeah, no, I think it's early days. So I wrote the book really for, people, and I think it's a people movement. And one thing that I only realized after 10 years of LinkedIn consulting is that companies are made of people. We always differentiate, oh, I work with companies. Oh, I work with people. It's the same thing. Companies are made of people. And so my hope is that even in companies, people will start to bring these topics up. So we our mind right now thinks, oh, it's going to take time. But no, things are going to change fast, and we don't know what the business world is going to look like even in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. Arndt is asking, is gentle marketing applicable to entrepreneurs and to products? Where do you draw the line?
I totally think it's applicable to products. I did a podcast about that because someone else asked me the question, and the best examples I have is B Corps. I mean, they are bringing all of them to marketing, just like entrepreneurs bring more of us to marketing. They are the founders, obviously. So sometimes these are small companies, but even there's bigger ones like Danone and what's the one with the P, Patagonia, and so. They start with the founder usually, and the founder has, goes into the rumbling and what's my story and why did I build this company? And all of this then is being brought into the marketing, the branding. So it doesn't really matter what you sell. Valerie and I had a funny conversation about, what was it? Some gardening tools or something. We're like, yeah, you can do this for gardening tools. It doesn't really matter as long as you think about your story and your why and really bring more of you to your marketing, because people are going to sell or buy into you and into your worldview. And that is also true for companies. I mean, if you look at, products on offer, the ones that have a good story, especially if you look at the millennials, they'll always choose the one with the good story. For our generation, maybe we're still kind of based in pick the cheaper one, but the millennials, that's how they make a decision. That's also how they decide which company they're going to work for. So I think it's totally applicable for products.
It's almost like there's no escaping the person, the initial rumbling, right? Because these products don't exist. They don't just spring out of the ground. We all know that. So yeah. What else? So Janice is saying the phrase dance between, so many comments. The dance between doing and being really resonates. I'm working with a client who wants to make a difference, and I can see that framework would be very powerful for her. So, how to bring the left and right brain together. I don't know if you have any ideas about that.
Yeah, it's really making people understand that you don't always achieve more if you're only focused on the doing. It really takes time to pause and focus on the being so that you can bring more of your true self to your marketing, to your work, to your whatever it is, right? So that's the dance between the being and the doing. And I really think COVID kind of helped us with that, because we had some more time to realize, well, what is really important to me, what matters. And so again, I think it's all just good timing.
Sure. So a lot of people, we're all being very positive and excited about this, but I'm just wondering about the resistance, the fear that is maybe coming up. I know that this is something that I've dealt with. Your book is calling for quite radical change, and that can be scary. Yeah. So would you be able to address like the fears that some of us might face in kind of stepping out and doing things in this revolutionary way?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, and what's so beautiful here, is that you need to surround yourself with people who think alike, so that you don't feel like you're totally alone. And that's what we're doing here. So it's like, no, we're not alone. We can make this happen. And there's, all of us together who are really just fed up with the old way, and so we want the new thing. But that being said, yes, there's also the financial stress, right? It's like, well, we know the other hypey stuff works. What if this new stuff, this kind of woo-woo approach, what if it doesn't work? And so, yeah, I hear you and I see you. And when I did my research and kind of like, because I also had this limiting belief that you had to be pushy and hypey in order to, be successful and sell stuff. Because, why? Because I just didn't see the other examples. And I realized later that, well, the ones who have the joyful business, the ones who have found their gentle way to market and grow their business, they're not the ones yelling the loudest. They're not the ones selling their webinar template. Oh, how I made $2 million in 2 weeks. They're not the same kind of people. But there's tons of stories out there of people who are using already this gentle approach. But it's just they're not selling their stuff in a marketing course, So I think that's really what it is. It's really trusting that there are people out there who are already successful using those techniques. And I would also say, well, if it still works for you, the old way, the pushy way, yeah, why not? Keep using it. The question really is, does it work for you though? Like, not just the numbers, but does it really work for you in terms of integrity and all of that?
I think that's one of the pushes that got me, thinking differently. Ultimately, that wasn't working for me. And who knows why? Maybe it was the self-sabotage thing. Be interested to know other people who have tried, the hype way and actually found that it didn't work and have been looking for something else.
Yeah, Kristen is saying, but does the old way work?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting question as well, right? That's what we hear, that's what's working, but that's just, we don't know if it's really true because, again, these people are not necessarily the ones who are always sharing the truth. So who knows? Maybe they have like one poster child, one great testimonial, and the rest of their clients are not really getting good results because it's also when people buy in fear, they come to the offer in this scarcity energy, they're not going to get the results you want them to get. So that's why the positive marketing works so much better. You encourage people, you empower them rather than shaming them and manipulating them to just get to buy your stuff.
Scott makes a good point saying, yeah, if it works for the short term and leaves a wake of failure. That's the hype marketing approach.
Right.
So, Sarah, most of us are here, I think, because we've supported your book on the Kickstarter campaign. And arguably, this is quite a non-traditional and, book launch. Could you tell us a little bit more about the launch itself? Why you chose to go for the kind of the crowdfunding approach? How was that for you?
Yeah. So obviously when you write a book about gentle marketing and then you think about launching the book, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? And I had done spent my fair time researching all these book launches, and it was all just not resonating with me because it was, pushy and all of that. So I thought about a different way. And it was actually Tony, my husband, who said, well, why don't you do it on Kickstarter? And I was like, I don't want to beg for money. That doesn't feel good. He's like, no, but it's not begging for money. It's getting people to buy into something. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, let me spend some time researching it. And then indeed, yeah, it really started to resonate because it was all creative projects, right? That's what Kickstarter is for. And so, and really also this idea of having a small group of people who take out their wallet and say, yes, we want you, we support you. We want you to write this book. That felt really good and supportive. And so, yeah, that's what I did in December. And it was great. And then obviously I was like, well, that was kind of the safe launch where I felt safe and, amongst my people. And then I had to still launch it on Amazon. As all of you know, I'm self-publishing. And so I chose to do that during this week, the Random Acts of Kindness week, which again felt good because I could focus not so much on me and my book, but on kindness in general. And since the book is all about bringing more kindness to the marketing world, that felt like a good fit. So yeah, it all worked out. I think overall, it does feel like a gentle launch. Obviously, there's still numbers, and I'm working with, I would say she's a gentle book coach, but she still wants me to, check the numbers and send her a screenshot and all of that. So I'm like, fine, I'll do that, because there's always a game to play to a certain extent, right? And that's, I think, we talked about human psychology and those things that just work. And yeah, I've spent the last 12 years figuring out, which things work and which don't. And for example, I know the LinkedIn algorithm. Well, on Amazon, there's also an algorithm where you have to, keyword optimize your book. And I'm like, fine, I'll play that game as long as there's no like cheating. Like she told me that people buy reviews and things like that. I'm like, oh my God, that's what comes up for the book launch.
Yeah. And what you said, it is a balance, isn't it? You can't just ignore the numbers, right? Because again, we have to pay bills, like all of this. And I think that that's really the key to all of this. It's not just, okay, well, gentle means I am just going to go back to that hippie commune and, I'll write my book on a piece of paper and see what happens.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, wouldn't we all? But yeah, it's a trick. One thing that I really like when you told me about the Kickstarter campaign was this idea of community built around it. Because, I think a lot of the time I've had this experience of like basically buying a book on Amazon and feeling like, the author probably has like no idea, like, because you don't get to know who buys your book. There's no sense of like ongoing community from these things. It's, even with books where I'm like, I would love to talk to people who've read this book, but you built that into the launch, which is just, amazing. It was very inspiring. So Sarah, what's next? Now that you've got the book is out there into the world, it's going to be going off and doing its own thing. How are you going to continue this gentle marketing revolution?
Yeah, well, you just mentioned community, and that's really where I feel like that's what I want to do. And some of you are already in the gentle business circle. So that's really where I want to hold the space to have these conversations around a different way to market our business, but also a different way of doing business in general, and just having a place to discuss this and share and feel less alone and say, no, you can do it. You don't have to throw everything out, but just focus on small changes. And so that's I think where I want to spend my time nurturing that community and keep talking about gentle marketing. I really, as an introvert, these podcasts are great. I love spending time talking to other people. And for now, it's still mainly, I would say, female hosts, at least, that like the tough marketing podcast won't probably consider talking to me. They'll be like, what? Gentle? What? But slowly over time, who knows, right? There's definitely growth to it. And I think that's also why there's this kind of still a little bit of internal pressure to want the book to do well, because yes, I really care about this. I really do want to bring this empathy and kindness to the business world. And so that means that I don't want to just have a little ebook on Amazon that nobody cares about. So yeah, and I also want to hold up first of all, hold up the book, right? I have the book. So.
The physical copy.
I got my copy. Almost didn't, but I did. And then I made this thing the other day where I gave the book wings. So there's the creativity, right? I'm like,
that's amazing.
I need this book to fly now. It's not my book anymore. It just needs to fly. It needs to find its people and take off and resonate with the people who most need to hear it. So yeah, that's what I want.
There's rumors in the chat box about a TED Talk.
Who says that? Oh gosh. I was just telling Tony today, I'm like, I can never do a TED Talk. Forget it. I know I said it. I said it to Valerie knows about this, but I'm like, I can't even sleep for an Amazon book launch. How am I ever going to do a TED Talk?
I think we're all rooting you on and that we totally need you to do that. So
well, we'll see about that.
The gentle TED. Yes, exactly.
The gentle TED. Yeah. Yeah.
So, any more questions from people?
Yeah, talk to me.
TED's G, yeah, as opposed to TEDx. I like it. Awesome.
Ooh, I'm interested in that. Yes. I don't want to go on stage, Cecilia, so bring up some kind of different TED option.
Well, this is the interesting thing about, how the pandemic has affected things. It almost feels like perfect opportunities now are existing, like all of these conferences which are being held online. Yeah. I'm like, wow, that energetically, for all the introverts out there, I know that I can do this way easier than I could if all 20 of us were sitting in a room together. So
yeah, who knows? Yeah, maybe TED will be online. I think they did some kind of event during the pandemic online. Obviously it's not the same, right? But yeah, I sign me up. I'll do TED online, but on a stage, no thanks.
And Kristen says, yeah, we can just have like the clapping noise like on a tape in the background. Nice.
Yes. Nice. Yeah. Any other comments, questions?
Are we ready for our champagne?
I think so. A glass of wine. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with us, all of you. I see you. Thank you for being here. It means a lot to me. And until we meet again.
Take care.
Thanks so much. Bye. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this recording of the party over at Zoom. Again, I called it a book birthing party as that felt much better than the word launching party. So that's why I called it that way. 2 more things before you leave. Actually, 3 more things. I would love for you to get the book. If any of the things we speak about here resonate with you, you can do that over at Amazon or on my website, thegentlemarketingrevolution.com/book. That's also where you found a ton of resources to kind of integrate everything you're reading in the book. The second thing is I also want to share the 2 random acts of kindness that we've been sharing here every day. And again, they come from this amazing calendar over at randomactsofkindness.org. So make sure you go there and download your workplace calendar 2021. And today's random acts of kindness that I selected for us are: first, reach out to someone you haven't talked to in a long time, not with the idea to sell them something, but just to check in. And the second one you could try: don't engage in negative conversations, change the subject or inject something positive. I do that with my kids all the time, and they like trying to change their perspective. They kind of get annoyed sometimes. But hey, maybe, 10, 20 years from now, they'll think of me whenever they think negatively, and they're like, oh, remember Mom used to say, change your perspective. I don't know. I can understand that right now as teenagers, they're kind of annoyed whenever I try to change their negative whining into something positive. Anyway, the final thing I wanted to share is that in order to apply for the free year-long Gentle Business Circle membership, please leave me a voice message at sarahsanacroce.com/ask and tell me why you'd like to join the circle and why you'd like to be considered. So as I mentioned, every day I'm giving away one free membership each day, and the first message that I'll see that I'll get alerted to wins that year-long membership. Don't forget to leave me your name and email so I can actually contact you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. You'll find the show notes with all the links at sarahsanacroce.com/GBR76. Tomorrow I'm back with a wonderful guest, my friend Andy Mort from the Gentle Rebel podcast, and together we discover why gentleness is strength. Make sure to tune back in tomorrow, and let's not forget, let's be the change we want to see in the world. Speak to you soon.